Welcome back to my weekly show here at the Eck Network. I'm Julia and this is Rumba. In today's video, I want to give you some tips for if your horse rushes the fence. This is a super common problem. Just about any horse show you go to, you'll see horses that rush the fences. And what creates this problem is when you're riding to a fence, often if the horse is getting a little bit excited or locks onto a fence, what happens is the rider will hold the reins, but then as soon as they get to the base of the fence and the horse jumps, they're releasing. So what they've then taught the horse to do is the faster that they get to the base of the jump, and then they get that release. So if you go back to the How Horses Learn video, we go into a little bit more detail on this whole concept, but they're really just training the horse to go faster and faster to the base of the jump. So to break that pattern, I love to do a lot of jumping grids. Grids are great for a ton of things. If your horse refuses, again, if they're hot to the fences, or even if a horse is learning to jump. That's what I did with Rumba when she was first learning, is we worked through a ton of grids. That all starts with just working through a set of trot poles. So basically what this does is it eliminates the rider's influence in the approach to the jump. So I'll demonstrate it as I ride it. But basically what you're going to do is as soon as you enter the grid, you're just letting the horse set their own pace. And what they'll do is they'll learn how to come through the poles at a pace that makes sense. They'll figure out how to pace it themselves instead of you holding onto their face and trying to micromanage it. It really takes that out of our control and allows the horse to just reprogram that pattern that they've created. So I'm going to go out here and trot the poles. I always set my trot poles for her at 4 feet. 4 feet, which is pretty standard. But if you have a horse with a much longer stride, you'll actually need to make that even wider. So she came into that just a little bit, I wouldn't say fresh, but she enjoys to jump, so she was looking forward to that. But all I did was just say really soft, and again, let her find a rhythm that worked for her. We're gonna come through one more time. And I'm just going to try to keep her straight. That was much better. If your horse is really going to one side or the other, what you can do is use guide poles along the side to stop them from either floating to the left or the right. I also love doing grids in the wintertime if I don't have a ton of space. You'll see I also have 6 poles set up. 6 poles is a good starting point to get them going with grids. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set this up into a small crossrail and we'll come back. All right, so we've set it into a crossrail, and what I've done is I've taken away one of the poles. So now there's actually 8 feet between the last pole and the crossrail. Of course, a little bit more space. I prefer to use this with her. You can leave that pole in. It can just be a little bit tight sometimes. If your horse is really, really fresh to fences and they begin to anticipate the grid, you can also walk all the way up to the poles. You don't have to start off at the trot. If your horse is a little bit lazier, more dead to the leg, then you'll want to make sure you're coming in with a pretty good trot. But if your horse is hot, you're totally fine to just completely walk all the way up to the grid. I'm going to pick up the trot. Again, I'm just worrying about her staying straight, keeping a consistent rhythm, and I'm going to let her jump the fence. What I liked about that is it's a really, really tiny crossrail, so she put in very little effort, which is what I would prefer rather than her just leaping over it and putting in a ton of effort over a tiny, tiny fence. So again, keeping my eyes up, keeping her straight. I'm going to let the fence come to me, and she rode that at an even pace than we did the first time, and that's really what I'm looking for. Is I want her to stay in that nice consistent rhythm, ride over the poles with good balance, and then jump the fence at an appropriate distance. The last step of this for today is I'm going to make this into a small vertical. You can build these grids out into canter poles. You can add extra fences after this fence. You can add bounces. There's tons of things that you can do with this. But for today, I just want to show you a few grids to get started. All right, we're back with the final grid demo for today. I've put this into a small vertical. It's under 2 feet. It's very, very tiny. You can go up higher depending on your level, but again, just for demo today, this is as high as we're gonna go. So same thing, I'm gonna go out here, pick up the trot. I like to try to establish a nice trot. Again, if your horse isn't too hot, before I come to the grid, just because I think it's a nice habit for both horse and rider. So again, I'm going to keep my eye up, keep her straight, keep the rhythm consistent. Good girl. And that's okay if she lands on the wrong lead. I'm not really worried about that for today's purposes. A lot of times what you can do is set the grid up in the middle of your arena, and then whichever lead your horse lands on, you can just plan on going that direction. It's less about worrying about leads, more just getting the feeling of the horse's jump, getting them to feel this nice soft rhythm coming in. So she came in a little bit, I would say a little bit faster, a little bit rushing. So that was actually a really good example for the video, because now I want to come through one more time so that she can slow down that a little bit and find a more balanced rhythm and a better spot to that fence. And that rode much better. So she backed off a little bit. She tends to build as the fences go, which is one reason why I like to do the grids with her, is that we're going through not just more and more fences, she's having to still think about it as we're coming to them. So again, this is just a short introduction to grids, a couple of things to work on. If your horse has been rushing to the fences, again, we're removing that pattern of holding the horse to the base of the jump and giving them the release as soon as they take off. This is going to break that pattern. This is such a fun exercise, again, for this time of year. Take the time between now and next show season, put in the work, and it'll make a huge difference in your coursework. I hope this video was helpful. Make sure you hit the notification button and subscribe to the channel so that you never miss another video. I'll see you next week. Happy riding.